Nittany Lions walk arm in arm into a brand new college football world. Can you imagine a late December home playoff game?
If you've earned that right, you should have that advantage.
Conference realignment is not just big, it's supersized. The Big Ten officially swells to 18.
To be able to go to the Coliseum this year, travel the country in the middle of the school year, it's quite amazing, and I'm just super excited to get going.
And video game imitates life. The release of EA Sports College Football 25 hits home for PSU.
I remember waiting outside GameStop, my dad going to get the game, so it's surreal being able to, the next game coming out, I'm in it.
Soon, the Beaver Stadium stands will be filled for real. Right now, it's time for Nittany Game Week. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Nittany Game Week. I'm Todd Sadowski alongside former Nittany Lions coaches Jay Paterno and Tom Bradley. We're excited to be talking about college football once again, and there is no shortage of topics to discuss for our preseason preview. What comes to mind for you guys when you think about a fresh start to a new season?
You're undefeated. All the possibilities are there. Everybody's excited about what might happen. But there's also the trepidation when that first kickoff goes up in the air. What comes next?
For the players, they're getting tired of hitting the same guys every day. They would like to see somebody in a different colored jersey that's not one of their buddies.
For our 2024 debut, we're going to focus much of our attention on the changes in the game overall and how they affect the Nittany Lions on a national level in our opening drive. So we start the season by talking about the end of the season. No bigger development than playoff expansion from 4 to 12 teams. The last Big Ten title was in 2016, but there's no doubt this helps Penn State as much as any other team in the country. 6 of the last 8 years they would have qualified.
No question. I think the reality is that you're going to be expected to make it almost every year at a place like a Penn State or Ohio State or Michigan, that kind of thing. So the excitement is there. And there's also that element of the conference championship means so much more, and this playoff, it means one less game.
Can you imagine Beaver Stadium in December? Well, I hope the weather's bad.
Yeah, we're going to see what happens with that. But you mentioned, Tom, and they fit right into that hosting a playoff game. And they like to have just one whiteout every year. A playoff game only a few days before Christmas, well, that might be the exception.
This is a different model in college football, and we want to do everything we possibly can to put us in the best position to be successful. And if that gives us a little bit extra juice, and between Pat Kraft and Mother Nature, we may have one of the biggest whiteouts we've ever had.
That's going to be probably the best part of the expanding of the playoffs, is having games at home fields. Because if you've earned that right, you should have that advantage, just like NFL teams that get to host a playoff game. I mean, that's a big deal.
Always love to hear from one of Penn State's national championship quarterbacks, Todd Bradley. Beaver Stadium would be rocking if the playoff comes to Happy Valley.
And that leads us to the second biggest thing in this offseason is the conference realignments that are now going to take place this year. You look at Penn State. Tom, you were at UCLA. Now they're in the Big Ten. Seems really strange.
It seems strange from the fact that the travel standpoint is going to be totally different. Those are long trips.
And for the players, it certainly changes their world when they see the new opponents on the schedule.
Having teams like UCLA, USC, Washington, Oregon in the Big Ten is something I never would have imagined 10 years ago. And to have the Big Ten, like a power conference like this, it's something else to be able to go to the Coliseum this year, travel the country in the middle of the school year. It's quite amazing, and I'm just super excited to get going.
That will be cool and a little bizarre to see the Nittany Lions walk into Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum in mid-October for a regular season game. The players have been taking all kinds of reps in the offseason while sitting in front of their TV. There's a craze over the new EA Sports College Football 25. Evan Brooks tells us about the Nittany Lions' study habits when it comes to the game.
Before the Nittany Lions hit the field for real in just a few weeks, there is another field they all can't get enough of. The new NCAA college football game has been the talk of the offseason and one the Nittany Lions players can't put down.
The Penn State Nittany Lions and one of the loudest, most passionate crowds you'll find anywhere in college football.
It's the game that's sweeping the nation. The new EA Sports College Football 25 video game is back after 10 years. And like many college athletes, the Nittany Lions players couldn't be more excited.
You know, I played NCAA 14 a lot when I was younger. I remember waiting outside GameStop, my dad going to get the game, so it's surreal being able to, you know, the next game coming out, I'm in it, and, you know, I'm loving it.
There's plenty to be excited about, from the real feel of Beaver Stadium on game days to playing as themselves, while, of course, testing the skills of their teammates.
I be whooping everybody in here, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I play it like every day. Well, not now because of camp, but as soon as camp over, I'm back on that.
Gone are the days of just jersey numbers and positions. It brings the entire package that every sports video game tries to capture.
But to see myself in an actual college football game, it's like a full circle moment. It's really cool.
While the game has received rave reviews, in State College, there might just be one adjustment they each would make.
You think they did a pretty good job with your overall, your swag, stuff like that?
Yeah, I'm still a little salty about that. I feel like I should have been in the 94, 95 range, but we're going to work on that. We're going to get that fixed. I feel like I'm going to be the first 99 overall.
You feel like you're well represented in terms of overall speed, swag, stuff like that? What you think?
Nah, not at all. That's going to change after a couple weeks of the season, though. I should have way higher speed, but it's cool.
The good news is the players all have a chance to change their ratings starting on August 31st when they open up at West Virginia.
Thanks, Evan. Those guys are competitive in that game for sure. Still to come, it's the roadmap to victory. Our coaches examine the effects of the super conferences and go back in time to show us what a 12-team playoff would have looked like for some of the best teams in PSU history. You're watching Nittany Game Week.
Roadmap to Victory is sponsored by the R&R family of companies.
Welcome back to Nittany Game Week. Our scouting report now lives under a different name. It's the Roadmap to Victory. Penn State wants to reach double digits in the win category again this year. Coach Bradley, Coach Paterno, if they can get there in the regular season, I believe they will take part in the newly arranged postseason festivities.
No doubt, and I'll tell you, you know, R&R certainly knows about getting things from point A to point B, and that's going to be the challenge for Penn State with a new conference realignment. Creates a lot of new, exciting matchups. The Big Ten has taken on some good people. So what we're going to do is give you the syllabus for the upcoming semester on some of the weekends you want to pay attention to. And let's talk about some Big Ten non-conference games right out of the gate. USC plays LSU in Vegas, Tom. Texas, week 2, goes to Michigan. Alabama's at Wisconsin, Tom. Alabama may find out Wisconsin a tougher place to play than they think.
Wisconsin's one of the toughest places to play in the country, and having been there, it's always a dogfight.
Yep.
One way or another, even if you win a game, you're going to be beat up after that game.
Yep. And then you look at Notre Dame plays Purdue. Notre Dame plays USC. So again, Big Ten people taking on, and UCLA playing LSU. So again, more games to watch. Now let's talk about some of the other big weekends that we get. Mark your calendars. This is This is why, you know, having these teams in the league are exciting, because you get USC, UCLA, USC at Michigan is a Big Ten conference game. Tom, sounds strange to say.
Yes, it does.
Iowa at Ohio State in the 5th of October. UCLA's at Penn State. Michigan at Washington. The 12th of October. Ohio State at Oregon. Penn State at USC. Those are really big-time Big Ten games. Then you go into November. Penn State and Ohio State are playing on the 2nd of November, which you go, that's the game of the day. Well, it might be Oregon at Michigan. It might be USC at Washington. And then when you go to last weekend, you got some big rivalry games in Notre Dame, USC. A lot to be excited about, Tom.
A lot of people will be sitting in front of their televisions this fall.
No question. So let's talk about the playoff, okay? The 2024 preseason coaches poll, we're going to use and create a bracket as to what that's going to look like. And Penn State is number 9, but when you factor in the conference championships, because that's a key, conference champions get buys. Your conference champions based on the poll would be Georgia, Utah, Florida State, and Ohio State. So they get the buy. Now, you fill everybody in. So Penn State's 9, but because those teams go ahead of them, now they're 11. Look where they're going, Tom. They're going to Austin, Texas.
It's a great atmosphere down in Austin, Texas, and it certainly will be on that day too.
No question. I'm making that trip all day because you can eat so much meat you get a meat coma. Michigan at Alabama, exciting playoff game. Memphis and Oregon, not as much. Notre Dame and Ole Miss, but you start to look at the way these things play out. Penn State then goes to a bowl game, could be playing Florida State, could end up against Ohio State if that seeding holds. And then you look at a lot of excitement, a lot of things to be excited about. So it creates a different environment for
And I
you.
can guarantee one thing, it will not be this way by the end of the year.
No question.
Okay.
No question. Now, let's talk about historically what this might mean. We've talked about what it might mean the last 6 to 8 years. Went back and looked at a Penn State team that you say, this might have been a team that in a 12-team playoff wins the whole thing. 1981. Their offensive line inside, 3 guys picked in the top 37 picks in the draft. So let's take a look at that final coaches poll and how that playoff would look at. And Tom, I know you look at a couple of those teams that Penn State beat, but let's look at the bracket now. Penn State would be a 6 seed, hosting Iowa, go to Nebraska, play Nebraska, who they already beat. If USC comes out of that, Penn State have beaten them. And Pitt's over here. Tom, I know you're a big fan of Pitt, and you remember that game really well.
Well, that's still, you talk about it, everybody still talks about the 48-14 game in Pittsburgh.
No question. And the way Penn State closed out that season, that very potentially could have won the whole thing at that point because Warner had gotten hurt in the 2 games they lost. So, again, a lot of excitement, a lot of things to look forward to. And, Todd, you're going to be busy.
A lot of fun to think about. Thank you, coaches. And many people think the conference realignment should have been for football only. That is not the case, which means it's California. Here we come for the Nittany Lions' other sports. And LA is beautiful in October, and these teams are going to experience it firsthand. Football on the 12th at LA Coliseum, women's soccer, women's volleyball, both in Cali, multiple days for games against UCLA and USC, men's soccer at Washington on October 18th. One guy that completely understands that travel plan is Lackawanna Trail High School grad Yogi Roth. The Northeast PA native moved to Los Angeles soon after his college football career at Pitt and never came home. He's been working at the Pac-12 network, but is now an analyst with the Big Ten network, and he's curious to see how the merger of teams from the West plays out on the field.
At Washington, you play on the lake. You'll see that when you get up to Montlake in Seattle. So you have to be able to cut through the wind there. But in LA, that's clearly not the vibe. Like, it is 73 and sunny every single day, which is why we still live there. So that'll be fun to watch as teams like UCLA head out and USC head out. Like, what's that going to be like when they go to these different environments?
Yogi is a true renaissance man. He was an assistant coach for Pete Carroll at USC, wrote a book with Carroll on coaching philosophy, along with children's books. He's also acted and directed. Up next, we picked the brain of another high-profile college football analyst. Our Impact interview is with ESPN's Greg McElroy. We asked the former Alabama QB about changes to the game and where Penn State potentially fits in to a postseason puzzle. More Nittany Game Week is on the way.
Impact Interview is sponsored by the Pocono Mountains, where small-town charm meets big adventures. Book your trip today by visiting PoconoMountains.com.
Welcome back to Nittany Game Week. This week's Impact interview guest knows how to guide a team to a championship. He led Alabama to a national championship season, undefeated in 2009, but perhaps more impressively was the 5A Texas High School Player of the Year in 2005 and guided Carroll High School to an undefeated and 5A state championship. ESPN analyst Greg McElroy, thanks so much for joining us on the show.
It's good to be with you guys. I appreciate you citing the high school resume because statistically speaking, that was a very impressive run there in high school as opposed to college where I took a little bit of a backseat to our run game. So I appreciate the high school acknowledgement.
No doubt about it. And you had to you had to bide your time too with Chase Daniel in front of you. That's quite an impressive list of QBs there. Well, look, last year we spoke to one of your broadcast partners, Molly McGrath, about her sprinting. We had the video of her sprinting at the end of a game across the field to get a post-game interview. And we're told that you made your own post-game sprint back in early 2010 to get a photo op. So tell us about that story, if you would.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's ironic that you guys would bring up Molly's post-game sprint at the end of the backyard brawl in which Pitt, a rival for the Nittany Lions, whether you want to acknowledge it or not, was on the losing end. So that in and of itself, in a roundabout way, I see you guys taking some shots at the in-state rival. I did actually after the game in 2010. There was only one coach that I ever went and tried to get a picture with. And this was in 2010. I'm sitting there on the field, and Bobby Bowden, Joe Paterno, and Nick Saban are sitting there at the 50-yard line. It's like an immortalized picture I'm warming up in the background, and they're just sitting there on the 50-yard line, walking and talking about each other's teams and all this other stuff. So super cool moment for me in my career. And then after the game, it was an immediate run to try to shake Joe Paterno's hand. I mean, he's a legendary figure in the sport. We had played Bobby Bowden in 2007, and I didn't do that. And it was just this massive regret. Like, man, I just played against one of the best coaches in the history of the sport. Like, I need to go show my respect. You know what I mean? So that was important for me, and still have the picture somewhere. I'm not sure exactly where. My mom probably has it, to be honest with you. But no, that was definitely a priority for me after we got done playing.
Brother Scott ended up tailgating with you guys after the game on that one. He came back and said, that McElroy guy's a great guy. But let's talk about the playoff. You know, obviously the biggest story this year is the 12-team playoff. And this setup really puts a premium, places a real high value on conference championships. You know, as you look at this, should teams be getting more aggressive in their non-conference schedule, given the fact that ultimately winning your conference championship, that doesn't impact you in terms of your conference championship, but it may get you ready for that run?
I think it does. I mean, I think last year was a good example. Granted, different format, 14 playoff versus the 12-team format, and we're going to get a good indicator this year. You look at a team like Missouri, you know, fringe team. Right now, if the playoffs started tomorrow, based on their preseason expectations, they'd be right there on the bubble. I think they're 11 in the AP poll, thereabouts. You look at their non-conference, and with all due respect to Boston College, you know, with all due respect to the teams that they're playing in the non-conference, it doesn't move the needle the way a Texas at Michigan moves the needle, or last year a Texas at Bama moved the needle. I mean, look last year, Bama lost that non-conference game in which they challenged themselves, and it didn't even have a huge impact on their overall evaluation. And I don't think it should.
Greg, Penn State has never made the 14 playoff. How much does the expansion of the playoff help a program like the Nittany Lions?
The expansion of the playoffs massive for them, but I think the dissolving divisions is more massive in the Big Ten, because I look at it and I look at a team like Rutgers this year. Rutgers never had a chance. I mean, on Rutgers' best season ever, they're going to finish 4th in their own division, and that to me it's unfair because it's purely geographic. Now, let's not get it wrong. One of the most corny things in the history of college football was legends and leaders, you know, in the Big Ten, 10, 12, 13, 14 years ago. It was ridiculous. But you should not be penalized because of where you live geographically. We saw the same discrepancy in the Big Ten West versus the Big Ten East. We saw the same in the SEC West versus the SEC East. The West was gauntlet. The East was manageable. Relatively speaking, we saw it at times in the Pac-12 North versus the Pac-12 South. Pac-12 South was a gauntlet. The North wasn't so bad. So the Big 12 North versus South, Missouri would win the Big 12 North almost all the time. But the Big 12 South, you had OU and Texas, and the Texas Tech led Mike Leach program. So I just look at the divisions. I think that's huge. But for Penn State, if I'm Penn State, I'm not satisfied with getting to the playoff. Like, to me, making the playoff is cool. I expect to be there. I think for Penn State, yes, it's beneficial to get in the playoff hunt, but it's only going to further the narrative about James Franklin in the event in which they don't have success when they get to the playoff. So he's going to have to, if they get there, awesome. That's where you expect to be. But what do you do when you get there? And that's, I think, going to be what's fascinating about how we evaluate these coaches, because we're going to see guys get fired. We really are, because they made the playoff, but they couldn't advance past the first round. We're going to see the Dallas Cowboy approach, Mike McCarthy approach, like Jason Garrett can't coach, gets up to the playoff every year, but can't coach, got to get rid of him. We're going to see that kind of find its way into college football as well, I think.
We have much more from Greg McElroy at NittanyGameWeek.com. We're going to need to step aside from the TV show for a quick break. But make sure you go to NittanyGameWeek.com for the entire conversation, along with other web-exclusive content like our depth chart and Nittany Game Week podcast. Our scrap metal is back by popular demand. We go in a little different direction for our debut episode of 2024. Tom goes next level with this week's choice. We're heading into the final minutes on Nittany Game Week.
The Nittany Game Week Depth Chart is brought to you by Burke & Bradley Orthopedics. Located in Pittsburgh, Burke & Bradley Orthopedics is a comprehensive sports medicine practice, providing patients with the most current and innovative approaches in diagnosis and treatment. Scrap Metal is sponsored by the We Are In, voted #1 game day restaurant in Center County. Follow us on Facebook and visit thewearein.com or call for dinner or room reservations.
The honor, the prestige continues this season with our weekly Scrap Metal Award given by Scrap himself. The winners embody all the qualities that you covet as a coach.
And I'll tell you what I'm coveting right now. All those guys trying to make the NFL rosters. It's coming down to the end. This is the big time for them, and they're fighting their way through to get on those teams.
Yeah, it is not easy to play this game. It's physical, and these guys still getting it done. We showed you Odafe Oweh and Jordan Stout with the Raiders. Of course, the biggest free agent splash made by the Eagles signing Saquon Barkley, a Whitehall native, ready to do big things in Philly.
I'm looking forward to the future, and I got 3 years here, and hopefully I can go out and prove to this organization and this fan base that I am a special player, and I can make a lot of plays, and I can help us win games, and get to the thing that we all want to get to, and that's Super Bowl.
Can't wait to see Saquon run wild in the regular season. Good luck to all the former Nittany Lions working to make an NFL roster. Now, Nittany Game Week is much more than a television show. And make sure you check out our depth chart at nittanygameweek.com. The depth chart is a collection of businesses that support the show, provide our viewers with places to eat, travel, shop, or professional services owned and operated by people with a special connection to Penn State. We have a lot to share with you when it comes to college football on our website, extended impact interviews, the Nittany Game Week podcast, past episodes, all can be found at nittanygameweek.com. What do you think, guys? You ready to talk about West Virginia and actual football next week?
Yeah, got the roadmap ready to go and already did some pre-scouting on this thing. So, yeah, gonna be a fun trip and a fun first game.
There's probably already fans waiting outside the stadium in West Virginia.
It's going to be a special environment in Morgantown. Well, we finished with some throwback Pride picks once again this year. Go to the website, submit your Pride pick, and show us your spirit. For Jay and Tom, I'm Todd. Thanks so much for watching Nittany Game Week. We'll see you next time.